Yeah, I'm top DPS, I'm the best. Oh, hey Ludo. Yeah, the new World of Warcraft expansion is out, so can you leave me be? How long have I been down here? Well, in the short term, all night, but in the long term, well, I've been playing for 16 years. I don't have a problem, you've got a problem, but wait, do I? Am I actually addicted to this game, and if so, how? I'm fully aware of all of the tricks dev use to hook their players. It is my job to design them, so if I've peered behind the wizard's curtain, why does this still work on me? What's kept this World of Warcraft clock ticking for nearly 20 years? So why do you think this game is so addicting, Ludo? The story. No, they butchered that a long time ago. Narrative design and even cohesion hasn't been their main focus for years now. I mean, it was early on. They took a lot of what people enjoyed narratively from the RTS Warcraft series and used that as a hook to get players in, ready to naively wander the fields of Northshire, but lurking behind those trees, Cenobites wait to administer a host of hooks to keep you addicted for literal decades. And this can start as early on as making your first character. So there's a wealth of choice here, with what race you pick ranging from fantasy minorities all the way to literal war criminals, but even when you've chosen to play as a mana-huffing crack addict terrorist, you get to select what class you play, and the level of complexity here is overwhelming to say the least. What are you going to be? A paladin? A mage but dragon flavoured? There's something here for everyone, even people with slow reflexes and terrible morals. Yes, I'm looking directly at you hunters and you know exactly why. Anyway, each one of these classes has their own suite of complex and interwoven abilities to craft their own unique playstyle, but to mimic what the game does to not overwhelm, first we need to level. Now, as my viewers will know, I usually despise leveling systems, how they gate off and bog down progression just for some artificial sense of pacing just tacked on because of some cargo cult thinking bullfuckery of how and why they exactly work. But World of Warcraft is the exception, because leveling here is a necessity of design. Because once fully leveled, each class has such a wealth of tools in their kit to suit any kind of situation. To hand all of that out at once would break players' minds, so they use the leveling system to onboard players at a more natural pace. For example, Monk, my main class. You start off with some simple damaging abilities, how to build up and spend your main resource chi, and then through each level they introduce new abilities to slowly get the player comfortable with a larger array of skills to use in their rotation to damage enemies more efficiently. And combat isn't just spamming the same button over and over, it's this dance that completely changes based on whatever situation you find yourself in, and for me, Monk is the perfect example of this because they have a passive that means they get increased damage if the next ability they cast is not a repeat of the last one. This encourages this flow in your rotation between skills rather than just sitting there spamming the same ability, picking your own ass. Yes, I'm looking at you hunters again. Throughout the leveling process, you gain this mechanical mastery of your class, so this visual noise of abilities comes into focus, knowing exactly what to use in any situation, be it to kill, stun, evade, heal or manipulate. It's so unbelievably rewarding to reach this point, feeling like a one-man Swiss Army knife that can also ride a fucking skeleton dragon. Now take this feeling of mastery and then go back and look at all of the available classes and know that they all play completely differently. It is intoxicating. This hook is firmly in, but it goes deeper. As you progress through the game, you gain access to a variety of dungeons. They're like these little pocket instances with their own sets of bosses and quests that can be repeated. Now, dungeons are a huge part of why I and many others are still addicted to WoW so many years later, but it might not be for the reasons you think. Well, no, it's not just about loot. We talked about WoW's gearing system in our episode on how looter shooter devs misunderstand loot, but I'll give the viewers a brief summary. Now, we all know this as the fabled carrot on a stick. As you progress and complete any form of content, you're rewarded with items with numerical stat bonuses that allow you to access harder and harder content. And this process repeats itself indefinitely in a loop as new content is released. The player is never quite able to reach that carrot, forever chasing, but forever being incrementally rewarded, keeping them in this chokehold of gratification, which on a surface level could keep players addicted to completing dungeons, but alone that isn't enough. For me, the real trick is what's required to complete them. To do them, you need 5 players, 3 to do damage, 1 to heal the party and 1 to tank, taking all of the enemy aggression and brunt of the damage. Now each class has a set of distinct specializations they can pick from that completely alters their class to fit one of these 3 roles. And for example, Monk can pick between Brewmaster to tank, Mistweaver to heal or Windwalker to DPS. Yeah, I know it's complex, that's why I've been drip feeding it to you. Anyway, each one of these specific roles has their own complexities and things to enjoy. For damage dealers, the enjoyment comes from performing your rotation and abilities as flawlessly as possible to compete against the other 2 DPS to see who can outperform the other. Doing dumbass shit like standing in enemy AoEs just to get % more damage, even though they're a ranged class. God, I hate hunters. Healers, however, have to navigate the ever-shifting environment that is the team's health bars, attempting to keep them alive, always on their toes. And tanks, yeah, they're just glorified babysitters. And I'm saying this as a tank main myself. We lead the party around, keeping enemy aggression on us as we attempt to mitigate as much of it as possible and corral the party into not being absolute twats. We control the overall pace of the dungeon, pulling larger and larger amounts of enemies based on what you, your healers, and the DPS can handle. Now, yeah, the infinitely repeatable projectile loot machines that dungeons are is a contributing factor to their addictive nature, but the real kicker for me is the social aspect. It can be as simple as filling a very specific role and feeling, well, needed, as sad as that sounds, but in other games that try and emulate this, you don't really need your teammates, but because of how complex WoW's endgame content can be, it makes communication and teamwork a necessity. You need to strategize and utilize the skills of each one of your players to succeed, and because of this, if you perform well, you very quickly start to make friends, people who want to continue playing with you because of how you play or what your specific class can bring to the table, and the deeper you get, the harder the content gets and the more of a necessity this all becomes. For example, raids, which are like massive dungeons that require at least 10 or upwards to 20 people to be present, performing and playing optimally. Entire guilds of players are formed to create teams to tackle this content, and these guilds become families that always come with their own sense of drama, betrayal and abuse. Shout out to Drama Time from Preach Gaming. Anyway, Ludo, what do you think MMORPG stands for? Yeah, that's right. Your mum is massive online role-playing game, and the important parts here are online and role-playing. World of Warcraft perfectly emulates an environment where you get to interact with other players on a massive scale and perform a role that makes you useful. That's what keeps players coming back. It's not just the loot and the dungeon's design. Do them completely by yourself and it can lose all of its luster quickly. Humans are social creatures. It's the interactions this game fosters that keeps its players coming back time and time again. Other people are a huge factor to why this game is so addicting. Or not. Do whatever you want. You just want to farm old content for cool ass outfits? Knock yourself out. You want to hunt extremely rare mounts? Each to their own. Want to destroy other players in PvP? Shoot for the fucking stars. Want to play Pokemon, but in WoW? Fucking go for it, mate. The game can be as complex or as simple as you want, as solo or community driven as you see fit. The longevity of this game can be attributed to this and the horrific amount of difficult work the WoW team has put into making this game accessible and attractive to as many types of players and foster a space that encourages community and communication. That's what's been bringing people back for nearly 20 years. But let's not discount some of the, let's say, nefarious things they've done over the years to try and keep their players hooked. Like constantly attempting to add entirely new mechanical systems each expansion, which can be great like with artifact weapons, or a total mess like Covenant abilities. Trust me, you don't want to know. Regardless of what system is introduced, rather than expanding on what was working, they create entirely new systems in the hopes of finding brand new ways to hook their players, but in the process, destroy what came before it to make room, leaving a lot of players to feel disillusioned. Or like having quests on a daily resetting timer that give you reputation for certain factions, that sometimes require literal months of grinding to complete. And this encourages the players to log in day after day after day, which is just unhealthy. And then, all of these reputations being tied to your character specifically, so that let's say you wanted to make a new one, well, get to grinding all over again, you fuck. Most MMOs like Guild Wars 2 or FF14 have moved past this like, I don't know, 10 years ago. It encourages players not to experiment at all, and in most cases, just to fizzle out and stop playing. You can have your game be addicting but still healthy and respectful to your players' time, and I know this because WoW is doing it right now. A lot of the issues I've just mentioned have been from World of Warcraft's past. Now there's still a ways to go, but they've made a lot of positive changes to put more power into the players' hands in how they choose to spend their time in game, by looking at competitors in the genre and learning from them rather than just digging their heels in. Making gear rewards and upgrades way easier to obtain and then trade between your classes. Daily quests are nearly all but gone, and reputation grinds are now account-wide across all of your characters. They don't want you playing all of the time. They no longer require that stranglehold on its players' throats. They want you to play other games but then be able to jump back in at any point and be able to stay relevant to its current content. They've made so many great changes, it's kind of worrying, honestly. It's like a drug dealer who occasionally gives you £5 for no reason and makes you wonder, well, are they turning over a new leaf? But nah, they're just trying to sell you more crack. But I guess the crux of this video is, crack is fun if you're making friends along the way? Yeah, it only took me 10 minutes to get this video demonetized, but what do you think? Have you ever become addicted to a game, and ask yourself, well, why is that specifically? Let us know down below, because we would love to discuss this with you. What about Final Fantasy XIV? Well, that game arguably respects its players' time even worse than WoW ever has, but that's a video for another time, because I have a lot to say on that subject. So, time to say goodbye, Ludo. Alright, bye guys.